From the first time I heard Dennis Irwin play the bass, I was an instant fan. I was 15 years old, and my father took me to hear the Melloist Orchestra at the Village Vanguard. I distinctly remember watching Dennis play and thinking he really didn't sound like anyone I had ever heard before. The way in which he played the bass and the tone he produced was unlike all the jazz bass players I had been listening to at that time in New York City. He had a way of making every band he played in sound special. He would always lift up whoever he was playing with, and even though he was in the background, his voice would always shine out. He was a consummate sideman, never wanting the spotlight, but whether he liked it or not, he was inspiring not only bass players, but all who heard him. I cannot thank Dennis enough for all the inspiration and knowledge he bestowed onto me and countless others. He was a true original, personally as well as musically. Sadly, in 2008, Dennis died after battling cancer for over a year. He was only 56. I had never seen musicians come together as they did to raise funds for him. He touched a sea of musicians all over the world, and they all came out to support him in his time of need. It is now almost 4 years since Dennis died. Back in November of 2011, my bass had to be shipped to a gig in the Midwest, and I was left without an instrument for my steady Tuesday engagement with Andy Ross at the Metropolitan room. I thought I would ask jazz vocalist Aria Hendricks, who was Dennis's partner for the last 4 years of his life, if she would allow me the honor of playing Dennis's bass for the Annie Ross show. I remembered how she had recently mentioned feeling ready and wanting to have Dennis's bass played again. I thought this would be a great opportunity to borrow his bass from Aria's apartment for a night on the town and hopefully show it a good time. She enthusiastically welcomed this idea. The following is my documentation of this experience, which I wanted to share as my way of honoring one of my all-time heroes, Dennis Irwin. Here we are in Aria Hendricks' apartment in Manhattan Plaza, and where actually Dennis Irwin stayed for the last few years of his life.
4 years.
4 years of his life, and I'm here to borrow Dennis's bass, graciously allowed by Aria, and for Annie Ross's gig on Tuesday, November 29th.
29th.
And today, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this is the amazing thing, is that we discussed this days ago and arranged for you to come tonight to pick up the bass. And it wasn't until like 3 or 4 hours ago that I realized this is November 28th, Dennis's birthday. And it's going to be the very first time that, since he brought this bass into the apartment, that it's going to be taken out.
Unbelievable.
Excuse me.
Please.
People have been fighting to get a hold of this bass, and I've been really dualistic, like on one hand saying, oh yes, of course, because I know that Dennis would want anyone who needed it to have it, but when it came down to it, I just could not part with it emotionally, and I feel like I finally come to the time where it's okay, I can let it go, and you called, and this happened, and we just talked about today, because it's Monday, the Tuesday before the gig, and dig, out of 365 days of the year, it's Dennis's birthday.
What are the odds? And here's Dennis's bass in the corner here, and I think you should get a shot of this back pocket, because this is very, this has a lot of personality. Oops, sorry. These are Dennis's strings. It's just, and he obviously labeled them somehow.
Oops, I'm trying to zoom out, but it's going, oh, I see. Okay.
He obviously,
oh my goodness.
He had a lot of strings in here, a lot of different gut strings that he obviously had some sort of system, because I see with this tape, maybe that was his way of identifying. I don't know, maybe not.
Oh, it was.
And then, so they're just in there in this case that is, I think it's called Joe's House of Sandals, which was the big popular case kind of pre-Meridian, and it's very padded and protected, but it's extremely heavy. It's like part leather, part weird plasticky fabric, but you can see it's like really heavy on its own. It's probably like 20 pounds without the bass, so this is pretty heavy. And so let's open this up. So this is Dennis's American Standard plywood blonde bass that everybody who knows Dennis knows this bass because he did a lot of his gigs and a lot of his recordings on this bass. But it's in great shape. It's set up incredibly high action for the way Dennis played and the tone that he would get, the way he'd pull, and but it's set up beautifully for this style of setup. But it's just a real, it's the kind of action that you really have to manhandle to really get a sound out of it. It's not gonna you can't. It's not set up to play easy. It's like you really have to muscle every note. But if you can do it, it's going to give you back this amazing sound, which Dennis had. So yeah, these strings are all gut and super high action, as I said. You want to get the camera in here, you can see like the action is the for you non-bass players is the height of the string off of the fingerboard, and the higher it is, the more you have to push down with your left hand to hold the string down and then pluck. It's out of tune, but really amazing bass, and I need to take it home and probably warm up a little bit on it before I really play, but you really have to put a lot of muscle in each note. Oh boy, it's all out of tune. You have a note over there? Can you give me a note on your keyboard?
Give you a G, give you a bouncy G.
Let me get the, oh, can you show this too? This is Dennis's other unique quality about his bass, is he had this special end pin that was made. I don't know if Gage made this special for him, but for maximum sound and everything being wood, he had this end pin made just for his height, and so you can't really like have someone who's shorter or taller adjust it if they're going to sit in. So it's just for his height. But,
oh my goodness!
And the fact that he has this huge hole here means he couldn't have a wheel, which most bass players use because you know, it helps you walk around the city. You're going to go in the subway. But so Dennis, I was just told by Mike Weatherly from David Gage that Dennis was notorious for lugging this huge bass and heavy case on a luggage cart, just one of those little cheap luggage carts, and that's how he wheeled it. So
the entire reason for sacrificing the wheel was for that peg.
For just having that extra bit of wood and
oh my God! You know, I think he may have tried to explain that, but he would sort of, whenever he said something that he thought was kind of embarrassing, he would swallow it and put it under his breath. And he said, "Yeah, well, I just," because I would ask him, "Why don't you have a wheel?" And I mean, I didn't ask him over and over again. Right. Yeah, but every bass player I've ever seen has had a wheel. Sort of a wheel. And he was like, "Oh, well, you know," and he would just sort of swallow it to the point where I just wasn't going to press it and ask what.
Right.
But now to hear that it had something to do with something very specific when he was playing.
Right.
And he was the first to sacrifice convenience for a traditional sound or the sound that he was going for.
No, and like you were saying, I mean, Dennis was unique in so many ways, but what made him a little different from most bass players is that he played not only like one or two gut strings on his bass, but all four, and the old-fashioned type that were round wound, and the D and the G are plain gut. So this bass was relatively still in tune after being not played for almost 4 years.
Is that explainable?
Well, I mean, I guess the gut, you know, they're natural. Maybe they expand and contract with the temperature. But his bass being plywood, I think it's actually kept it in better shape just because it's not a wood bass and it needed to be humidified. You know, plywood basses are like tanks. And this bass, American Standard basses apparently were made special for big band playing back in the 30s and 40s.
Now, why specifically for big band?
Because to put out the sound to kind of drive a whole big band. So they were made big and punchy and full. So, but if anyone who knows Dennis knows that he talked about playing long tones all the time and doing green room or blue room or whatever he would do, these exercises with usually another instrument where one person would start on a note and go chromatically down, and one would go up in fourths and hits thirds and sevenths, all sorts of cool, things for blending. Exactly. It's that F. Ooh, you really have to hold that one down, man. That's
Of course.
yeah, Dennis. I think every bass player who knew Dennis, probably got to sit in on this bass at one time or another. And I think universally everybody kind of said, I couldn't play Dennis's bass, or it was too hard for me. But I definitely see why. And I can see why, like I was saying, why he did all those long tones. Just to maintain that strength, which he was a naturally a big, strong guy anyway, so I'm sure it still probably came relatively naturally, but he was so graceful on it. He was like a bumblebee.
It was like a large, graceful linebacker.
Yeah, right. Doing ballet.
Doing ballet.
The idea. I need to do some work. I need to do some practicing. So I did that's the best I can do with no warm up. But so Dennis, I'm gonna do my best.
Happy birthday, Dennis.
Happy birthday, Dennis.
And this is a happy birthday for him.
So I was able to get the bass into the case, all zipped up. Oddly, all the zippers, even though they're not super smooth, they all work, and I got it onto the luggage cart, which apparently this is how he carried his bass. He didn't have a wheel. Mike Weatherly said this, so just on one of these simple luggage carts, and I'm just going to wheel it down to the subway and do it the way we all know how to do it. Taking it very easy though with this bass, but I don't want to take it in a cab because I'm afraid of it's so big. I don't know how I'm going to get it in the cab. Mine's smaller, so I'm used to it. I would hate for the neck to get lopped off, so that's what we're doing. Here we go. We're taking Dennis's bass to the subway on this cart, which I've never really done a bass on, so I'm a little...
You don't know how to drive.
And I already...
You've already
lost the
Have
bass.
you broken the bass?
Wow. Okay, Dennis probably did something with the end pin. I bet he bungeed the end pin.
Well...
So it didn't do what that just did. So let me just take a look down there. Just what it was just doing, which I don't want to do on the street. Let's see. I'll just be aware of that. Okay, here we go. Alright, good. Alright, I'm going to get my chops.
No, this is going to happen, and you're going to get good practice right here, because this is a tight squeeze. So this is a bit of an obstacle course to start you off on. But in the spirit of Dennis, and how difficult things were, and how he liked them that way.
Alright.
Alright.
We're good.
Okay. You can just let the door shut.
Got it? Here we go.
Yay! Free at last!
Yeah. She's
The
happy.
plywood rolls.
I can feel it. She's liking it.
So he called this this stretch of road
Yeah.
He called this the parade.
Oh, really?
Because, well, he couldn't walk down the street without 3 people stopping him.
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah, this building, I'm sure that's probably something that a lot of people don't like, that you're always seeing your artist friends.
You can't just walk out your door.
Right, right.
But yeah, so he would try to avoid the parade.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, he would try to avoid.
He's so shy.
Right. All right, here we go. Subway.
It's exciting. Oh, she blows!
Thank you, Aria.
Go get him, he's a jazz musician. They're after you.
See you soon.
Good luck, love you, love the plywood, and happy birthday to Dennis. Best way we could possibly celebrate. Yay, bye!
Platform edge, especially when trains are entering and leaving the station.
Here we are, day 2 with Dennis Irwin's bass in my apartment. We successfully made it down in the subway together. And just looking at the bass today, checking it out. It's kind of amazing. It's very, very hard to play. I was just warming up and was really experiencing a lot of kind of strain in my right and left hand. But it definitely is a workout, but it, like I said, it gives back what you can put into it. If you can put into it a lot, it will give it back. Just showing you that this action, how super high it is. Looking at his bridge, you can see he has a number of different pickups. He's got, I mean, he did a lot of different types of gigs with different types of music. He had a realist, and then this full circle Fishman, and then he had all these straps, these probably for microphones, because he always used to. I always remember him putting a microphone, kind of sticking it in between these strings facing the bass, like a Shure SM57, 58, and he also did this interesting thing where he taught me this a long time ago, back in the early 90s, when I was playing all gut strings just like this, and I was complaining about how my D string was too floppy, and he told me that if you thread the D string backwards, as you can see here, instead of it being going forward with the other strings, it's going backwards. That gives it a little more tension. So I can see he was doing that with his own bass. And very interesting thing here, I couldn't really figure this out. He's got a little tiny string tied to the bridge, and it's tied to the tailpiece right down here. And the only thing I can think of is he regularly would kind of somehow play so hard that his bridge would go flying off, and maybe this was so the bridge didn't fall too far. I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of. I don't see, I mean, it's not tight or anything, it's just there, it's kind of tied, so it's kind of a mystery to me. That's the only thing I can think of. But otherwise, it's really a great old American Standard bass. I'm estimating it's probably from the 30s or 40s, and I haven't even looked inside. Maybe there's a label and a date. But it's actually, I've heard that American Standard basses were actually made by the same company that made the American Standard toilets. So that's kind of a funny little fact. But looking inside there, if you can see, it says American Standard. Oh, it's really hard to show it. It basically says American Standard, made by the Cleveland Musical Instrument Co., a subsidiary of the H.N. White Co., Cleveland, Ohio. Patent applied for, number 207, American Standard, Cleveland, Ohio. So who knows about it being by the toilet company. Maybe that's just a funny myth. Regardless, it's got some history, and it's still in really good shape. It's got this kind of cool black line around it, which I don't know if that was original. It probably was. And he's got some duct tape on there. He probably had a crack, or maybe he just didn't like that, his body rubbing on it. Who knows? Got some real crazy repairs back here on the neck. I remember one of his basses fell off of the back of his strap. He was walking upstairs apparently, and the strap broke, and it might have been this bass, but whoever did the repair did a really amazing job. It looks like they put some extra wood in the neck at one point. Yeah, you can kind of see this action from this angle. It's kind of crazy. It's pretty high. I mean, in the old days, I guess that would have been more of the standard, but nowadays it's definitely not this high, and with these types of strings. So, crazy. Okay, here we have Joanna Sternberg, the next generation of gut string jazz bassists here in New York City. Joanna's been my student since 2000, what? 2005 from LaGuardia High School. Now she's going to the new school, and she's a wonderful bassist. I'm proud to have her as my student. Anyway, so here she is, going to play Dennis Irwin's bass, see what she thinks. Well, first of all, what did you know about Dennis Irwin?
He was the bass player in the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra and on many other recordings.
Yeah? Did you hear him a lot live?
No.
You didn't?
I've heard him a lot on recordings.
On recordings, okay. All right, well.
Never heard him live.
Well, he was, yeah, it was pretty amazing to hear him live, but you can also hear how amazing he was on those recordings. But so I wanted to see what you thought of his bass. So tell me what you think.
Smells
What does it smell of?
like copper.
Yeah, that's those old strings. So yeah.
Has duct tape.
Why don't you play a little bit?
Very high action. Very low sounding in general.
Yeah, it's got a really deep sound, right?
Very.
Powerful.
And old strings that he clearly didn't change much.
Yeah, right. I think he kind of changed, like, used strings for a while and took them off and then put on other ones and was just kind of revolving strings a lot.
He has a pickup.
He has 2 pickups.
Oh.
But he used mics a lot too. All right. Well, thank you, Joanna.
Thanks.
Here we have Mike Karn, who's actually been playing at the Vanguard band for past few years now, right?
About a little over a year.
A little over a year, playing Dennis's chair, and here he is in my apartment checking out the bass before I go to Annie's gig on his way back from the New School teaching, and
It's really moving some air.
yeah, it sure does, right?
Wow.
So, how's it feel to you?
Yeah, you know, well, not having gut strings on my E and A anymore, it's very difficult to, like you were saying, holding that F down is. But I mean, you know, the more I play, the more I get used to it. I mean, you can just feel the sound.
Yeah, it's such a big.
Huge.
Yeah, it really projects. Actually, my downstairs neighbor bumped into me on the street and he said, "Wow, I heard you practicing today more than normal."
Yeah, and man, that's so clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a lot of definition though.
It sure does, doesn't it? Yeah. It's clear. Even though it's big and kind of almost boomy, it's still clear at the same
it's
time.
not tubby or anything.
Yeah, yeah. 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 No wonder Dennis was always talking about long tones.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, it can make sense. The only way to really play that bass is by doing lots of long tones, I would imagine.
I never really noticed, but he must have had like a left arm like Popeye or something.
Right. I think he was pretty naturally strong.
Yeah. I think plus he did a lot of yoga, right?
Yeah.
I think that helped.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of like Dennis Irwin story or something you want to say about your experiences with Dennis?
Well, the thing I remember the most is one night at Augie's, was playing up there with Magnarelli and Jeff Ballard on drums. Dennis loved Jeff. And we were setting up, and as Jeff was setting up the drums, Eddie Locke walked by the picture window, and he looked in and saw Dennis, and he came in and started talking to him. And I remember standing there like thinking like, here's Jeff Ballard and Eddie Locke. That's pretty much your alpha and omega of jazz drumming, you know, and how there's this one, you know, how both these guys loved playing with Dennis and how he loved playing with them and how it sounded great with both of them. I just thought, you know, how many bass players could you think of that could play with Jeff Ballard and Eddie Locke and love both of them and sound great with both of them? That kind of sums it up in a way. So
yeah, Dennis definitely played with so many different types of musicians, and, you know, and was kind of like the favorite of all of them. You know, it's kind of amazing.
I remember coming out of an art ensemble Chicago concert at the Knitting Factory once. Me and Danny Sedanek, we went and we came out. We ran into Dennis, and he had been at the same show that we had been, and started talking how much he loved, you know, the bass player Malachi Favors, and Dennis kind of had this out streak that no one really knew about that much, or he was just into so much, you know. I mean, he was a swinger first and foremost. Well, he was a bass player. He was a bass player first and foremost. But he just loved all kinds of stuff. Obviously, you know, the Brazilian music, and but he could play. Yeah, he loved. It's not even that he could play with everybody. He just loved playing with everybody if they were good and they had something to. You know, the drummers that I used at Augie's were Mark Taylor, Andy Watson, and Jeff. And that's, you know, you got Sheriff and Mark on the one side and Jeff on the other, but it sounded great no matter who, you know. That's just what was so incredible about him.
That's cool.
Yeah. He had that spirit that transcended style. You know?
It's so true. Yeah. Well put.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Well.
Thanks for letting me play it.
Thanks for coming over and checking out the doghouse.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me, man.
Yeah,
it's
man.
A privilege.
Well,
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Miss Annie Ross.
I wanna be no one but me. I'm in love with a lover who loves me. the way I am. I have my faults. He likes my faults. I'm not very bright, but then he's not very bright. Autumn in New York. Why does it seem so inviting? Autumn in New York. It smells the thrill of first nighting. The hard luck stories they all hand me. Come on and make my bed. Come on and have a light. 'Cause I'm gonna arrive kinda late tonight. A blackbird. Bye, 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 bye. Bye! Come on, back up all my cares and woe. Here I go when I'm sick. And the bass that Neal is playing tonight belonged to the fiancé of Aria, Dennis Irwin. Very special. I like to read good books, can't get my fill. And Billy Eckstein's looks give me a thrill. Holding hands in blue show when all the lights are low may not be new, but I like it. I feel your tears as they fall on my cheek. They are warm like the gentle rain. The little man felt very sad. The one meatball was all he had. Now in his dreams he hears that call. It's no bread with one meatball. One meatball. One meatball.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Annie Ross.
My great friend of Dennis Irwin, John Roach, playing
the fiddle.
The fiddle here.
Dennis.
Hey John, you have any?
I have a Dennis story.
Great stories.
I have a
of
great
Dennis?
story, which is that I think I sat in on it was Dennis's other bass.
Yeah. Oh,
the French bass,
regime.
which was just as hard to play as this one.
Yeah.
If
Probably
not
even harder.
Even harder, right?
Stiffer, right?
And I went to Augie's to sit in on Dennis's bass.
Yeah.
And I couldn't play that tune I just played. Equinox. It came out like this. You know, or not even that good.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
It came out really not the way I hoped. And Dennis was really a good sport about it. He didn't say anything or like negative at all. But like I knew what time it was, you know.
He knew.
He definitely
knew it was hard for everyone.
Everybody else was laughing at me.
Yeah.
You know.
Here we have the wonderful Mr. Doug Weiss sampling Dennis's Crazy Plywood.
I can deal with this, right?
Ah,
It's easier to play fast than slow.
yeah, right, exactly. Kind of bounce it a little bit.
Still sounds like you, Doug.
Yeah, Doug.
Sounds like you anyway, man.
Hey, do you have any Dennis stories to tell? Any funny ones? We all have one.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he like John said, he was always very supportive. He was a very supportive guy, and you know, he dug being around musicians and bass players. One thing that was funny though is one time at Smalls, I went down there, went to Smalls with him one time, and I forget who was playing, but somebody who played like real guitar player style, like you know, like
Yeah.
playing all this shit.
Oh, on the bass.
On the bass.
Uh-huh.
And he just started laughing uncontrollably. It wasn't like he was being like mean or even dissing the guy. He was just so tickled and just like, he just had the giggles. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was just like, but he never said, I was like, man, yeah, this guy, yeah, whatever. But he didn't have anything negative to say. It was just funny. It just cracked him up.
Yeah.
And
No, he was a very honest cat. He didn't like make fun of people or anything. You know, it was like if he laughed, it was always like.
But he wasn't negative in any way.
No,
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
He was never negative, really.
It's kind of amazing.
I mean, I think you probably could have ticked him off one way or the other, but usually he'd be really amiable.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a storyteller, and he was a 19th century kind of guy, right?
He really was. Yeah.
He used to wear suspenders and.
Yeah.
I remember actually the first time I ever touched this bass was he asked me to sit in at the Vanguard with the Vanguard band.
Mm.
I said, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, I'll get up there." And I played some, you know, A-flat rhythm changes or something, you know, like right there. So I was just dead. After the first chorus, I was like, "Help!"
Listen to that sound, though. Right?
Spencer Murphy.
Yeah.
It's kind of worth it.
Digging
Worth it.
the action of the universe.
Wow.
We were talking
Just
about
thinking of
Wow.
the way Dennis played and his facility and sound,
And his
then
grace.
touching this instrument and his grace, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then touching this instrument, it's intimidating. Just, I mean, he's got like all kinds of funky.
You know what I can't understand is this little thing, Doug, where he's got like a rope connecting the bridge to the tailpiece, like in case it flies off.
Oh yeah, because I actually saw that happen one time.
Yeah.
He was playing at like a Joe Lovano gig, like, doom, doom, doom,
And
and
what
the
that-
bridge just went. Pow.
Oh, so that way it kind of held it from.
Keeps it, yeah, because there's so much tension pulling this way, and he would pull the strings so hard.
It's a safety wire.
That's
safety wire.
It's also important to recognize that this is with the bridge
all the way
extenders
down.
all the way down.
Yeah.
That's as low
So
as they go.
this is as low as the bass goes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, maybe he didn't keep it there all the time.
Well, it depends on what time of year it would be.
Sure,
This time of
sure,
year,
but
you would
this
have
is
to
like-
probably adjust this up a bit.
I feel like
Normally,
my
in the
fingers
fall,
need to be
you
twice
have
as
to
big.
adjust this up.
I know.
even
It just
touch
makes
it.
me feel like a little boy playing
Yeah,
this bass.
yeah.
Actually. And this is our wonderful sound man, JP. What did you think of Dennis's bass?
It's a beautiful instrument, very
Yeah.
strong, loud. We love that. We love bass.
Like, was it like definitely a difference than any other bass you've ever amplified, or was it?
Pretty strong and ballsy.
Yeah, I would say, right?
You would say that?
I mean, I just from playing it, I've never really played a bass that felt like that.
No.
We got Stephanie Gregg, daughter of the great Kenny Gregg, playing Dennis's bass. What do you think? I mean,
I'm tired
first couple plucks are the worst.
Right. It gets easier, I'm sure.
It really does. You realize your limitations with it, you know.
Well, if you played this bass every day, though, it would just be your bass, and you'd learn to.
That's what Dennis did.
Learn to make it speak, right?
Yeah. Hey, Steph, do you have any Dennis Irwin stories that you want to tell, or an experience about hearing him or anything?
I never got to spend enough time with Dennis.
Did you hear him live though?
Oh, lots of times, as often as I could. He just, he just didn't hang around long enough for me.
Yeah.
But he, I tried to hang around him as much as I could, and he one thing I remember him saying to me is, I was just picking up the bass, actually, but I didn't feel like I was ready for him. But I asked him if he taught, and he said, no, but I like to hang out.
Right. That's what he said.
But what he would tell me, and like on breaks, if I would talk to him on breaks on the gig, he'd say, one thing I remember is he said, if you're playing bass, most of the time you have to be the floor. Sometimes you get to be a door or a window, but most of the time you're the floor.
You're the floor. That's good. I never heard that. That's good. I like that. Here we are. We made it back.
Together.
We're back in Aria's apartment with Remy. And we got Dennis's bass back in its home base. And it's like, it had a fun time, but I think it's ready to be home, I guess, right? Kind of looks ready. So here we are, and I'm going to put it back in its corner. Okay, she's back in her home spot after her night out on the town with her mommy.
This was her spot for 8 years solid?
Yeah, right.
7.5 years solid. And just in that short period of time that she wasn't here, it was such an absence. It was like a huge absence.
It was 24 hours.
It was only 24 hours. It feels like
24.
2 weeks.
Wow.
And so I'm thrilled on one hand that she's back, but on the other hand, I feel really bad because I know that all she wants to do is be played.